Hello everyone, welcome to Amazing World of Science. I am going to be a science teacher today. So today we are going to see about the chapter Why Do We Fall Ill in Class 9 CBSE. So you might all have heard of earthquakes and cyclones that attack so many regions. So thinking of the ways in which they affect our health, so there are going to be a lot of health related complications that occur near the regions which are affected by cyclones. You may read it in the newspapers, or you may hear it from your relatives, parents and everything. So when we study about this, we will know that health and disease in human communities are very complex issues. So both of these are interconnected. So the health and disease, the term themselves are really complicated. So first that we have seen that cells are basic units of living beings. So you have learned that cells contains a lot of chemical substances like protein, carbohydrates, fats and lipids and so on. So actually the cell is actually a dynamic place. What is meant by a dynamic place? A lot of reactions are happening at the same time. You know, in your body there are a lot of reactions. You might learn it in chemistry too. So like the chemical reactions, you have a lot of reactions taking place in your body, which is actually called as metabolism. So cells conduct metabolism, so they are always dynamic. So even though the cells do not move, there is always some repair work going on, right? So imagine you have a bridge or something, you need to conduct regular maintenance work so that it is maintained properly. Same way in the body, the cells have to maintain themselves, so they conduct certain repairs. So always new cells are being made. In our organs and tissues, there are specialized activities going on. Like for example, always your body is doing some work. The heart is beating. Even when you are sleeping at night, your heart has to beat. So then the lungs are still breathing. Even when you sleep, you are still breathing. The kidney is filtering urine. The brain is thinking. So all of these activities are interconnected. So if the kidney is not filtering urine, a lot of poisonous substances will be accumulated. So under such conditions, the brain will not be able to function properly. So for everything, energy and raw material are required from outside the body. So food is a necessity. From food you will get carbohydrates, fats, which provide you energy. So anything that prevents proper functioning of cells or tissues will lack the proper activity of the body. So first we are going to learn about the significance of health. So we have heard the word health used all around us. So we use it ourselves as well. So we say my mother's health is not good, something like that. So actually health is a state of well enough to function physically, mentally and socially. You should be able to perform normal functions physically, and your mind should be healthy. And socially, you should make friends and you should interact with others. So health is defined as a state of physical, mental and social well-being. So health of all the organisms depend on the surroundings of their environment. So health, as I said before, so in case of cyclone, the health of the people living there is affected. And we human beings live in society, so it is called a social environment. Even that is actually very important towards our health. For example, if there is pollution in the area where you live, you might have problems with breathing, you might develop asthma. So then imagine, so you know you have a garbage system wherever you live. So the municipality or the corporation will be taking away your garbage. So imagine what will happen if no agency is ensuring that garbage is collected and disposed. What will happen if no one takes responsibility for clearing the drains and ensure that the water does not collect in streets or open spaces. You know that mosquito breeds in dirty water which is present in ditches and everything. So a lot of mosquito related diseases will be present, like malaria, dengue. So And so if there is a great deal of garbage thrown in a street, the area is going to be really dirty, and there is going to be a lot of the people are going to be affected with certain diseases. So our area and surroundings need to be clean and maintained regularly. So we need food for health, and the food have to be will have to be earned by doing work. So for this, opportunity to do work has to be available. Good economic conditions and jobs are need for individual health. For example, you might have seen your father and mother working, mainly because work gives you money, and with that money you can buy good food. So which is necessary for a healthy individual. So also we need to be happy in order to be truly healthy. So if we mistreat each other and we are afraid of each other, we cannot be happy and healthy. You need to maintain a mental well-being, and social equality and harmony are therefore necessary for individual health. Next, we are going to see distinction between health and disease free. So what do we mean by health and what do we mean by disease? So actually, disease, we can also say it as disturbed ease. Ease in the sense, a sense of calmity. So disease literally means a person being uncomfortable. For example, imagine when you have a cold or something, you do not feel good. You actually feel uncomfortable. So that is what disease means. But so actually we can easily see that it is not possible to be in poor health without actually suffering from a particular disease. Simply not being diseased is not the same as being healthy. So imagine a dancer. A good health for a dancer should be means being able to stretch his body into difficult but graceful positions. For example, good health for a musician might mean having good breathing capacity in their lungs to control the notes. So so good health is different for different people. So we can be in poor health without being a simple cause in the form of an identifiable disease. So when we think about disease, we think about societies and communities. So on the other hand, when we think about disease, we think about individual sufferers. For example, when we see in a society, if most of the people are healthy, we can actually confirm that the societies, there are no communicable diseases in the society, and the surroundings are clean. So what does disease look like? So let us think a little more about diseases in the first place. So how do we know that do you have a disease? In other words, how do we know that something is wrong with our body? So there are many tissues in the body, as you might know. What are tissues? Accumulation of cells which perform a specific function is called a tissue. So multiple tissues make an organ. So multiple organs make an organ system. You have organ systems like cardiovascular system, which comprises of your heart, then respiratory system, which is concerned with your lungs. Then here, so for example, the digestive system has the stomach and the intestines, and it performs a specific function. It helps you to digest the food which you eat. So the musculoskeletal system, which is made up of bones and muscles, hold the body parts together and help the body move. So whenever there is a disease, either the functioning or appearance of one or more systems of the body will change for the worse. For example, in your organ systems, your organ systems may not be able to function properly. So these changes give rise to symptoms and diseases. So symptoms of the diseases are the things that we feel wrong. So when we have a headache, we have a cough, we have loose motion, we have one with puff, usually you do not have that. Usually in your day-to-day life, you do not experience these headaches and everything. So you know that something is actually wrong with your body. It is a way of your body saying that there is something wrong. So then you know you have a disease. So signs of diseases are what physicians will look for on the basis of the symptoms. Like you have seen doctors, when you go to a doctor, they first ask you what is your symptoms, what are you actually suffering from, to rule out the cause, to rule out the causes and identify from what you are suffering from. So now let us see about acute and chronic diseases. What are acute diseases and chronic diseases? Diseases which last for very short periods of time are called acute diseases. For example, when you have a cold, it just lasts for 4 to 5 days. So that is an example of acute disease. A chronic disease is a disease which lasts for a long time. So it is present on your body for a long time, sometimes even as much as a lifetime, which is called as chronic disease. So one example of chronic disease is elephantiasis. It is present in many populations of India. So in elephantiasis, it causes enlargement of lymph nodes. So as you go in higher classes, especially 12th, you will learn more about it. So now chronic diseases and poor health. So acute and chronic diseases have different effects on our health. So any disease that causes poor functioning of some part of the body will affect our general health as well. So imagine you if you get a cold, so you take leave from your college or school for few days. So you might miss some few portions, but as soon as you come back to school, you will be able to cope up, you will be able to study the missing portions. But imagine you have a chronic disease and you have to take a long break, it will be very difficult for you to cope up. So for example, chronic diseases like tuberculosis, so people who get it are ill over so many years, so they feel tired all the time. So they have a very drastic long term effect as compared to acute diseases. So what causes diseases? When we think about the causes of diseases, we might remember that there are many levels of such causes. So if a baby is suffering from loose motion, we can see that the cause of the loose motion is an infection with virus. So then we will be thinking, where is the virus coming from? So maybe it is from unclean drinking water. So the baby must have drunk the unclean drinking water. Then another reason is that the baby might not be healthy. So it is more likely to develop such diseases. You know, your parents tell you to eat good food with vegetables and tell you to get some fresh air and tell you to play out in the sun, so that you get vitamin D. So if you do not do these things, you will know that soon you will get sick. So that means you do not have good health, and so you are exposed to more risks of developing diseases. So another cause is lack of good nourishment. So now we are going to see about infectious and non-infectious causes. So you know, microbes, viruses, bacteria. So microbes are small organisms which can infect our body. They can live in us. We are called hosts, and they cause certain diseases. So what are infectious and non-infectious diseases? So diseases where microbes are immediate causes are called infectious diseases. Diseases which are caused by microbes. So you know, microbes can spread in the community. For example, when you go to school, if your friend has a infectious disease, if they have cold, you also have a chance of developing it, because microbes can spread from person to person. On the other hand, there are also diseases that are not caused by infectious agents. For example, like cancer or jaundice. So this cannot spread in the community. So then some cancers are caused, for example, cancers are caused by genetic abnormalities. So high pressure can be caused by excessive weight and lack of exercise. So the way in which disease spreads and the way in which they can be treated. So there are so many ways in which they can be treated and they can be prevented in the community. So there are doctors who practice community medicine, it is all about studying the diseases and risk factors of developing certain diseases in the population. So, those doctors work together to prevent these diseases from forming in the community. So, we are going to see about infectious diseases. So, the entire diversity seen in living world can be classified into few groups. This classification is based on common characteristic between different organisms. Organisms that can cause disease are found in wide range of such categories. You know, viruses, bacteria, fungi, single cell animals, so protozoans. Some diseases are also caused by multicellular organisms such as worms. So, this is a SARS virus, for example. So, you know, you have the COVID virus, which is caused by a virus. Then malaria, which is caused by protozoan. This is trypanosoma. It is a protozoan responsible for sleeping sickness. This is so common in Africa. So this is saucer shaped red blood cell, and the organism is lying next to this. So, this actually to give an idea to compare the size of that of a RBC, red blood cell, and the protozoan. So, this of staphylococci, this is a bacteria. It can cause acne. So, for example, acne is I mean, it is similar to pimples. And this is a roundworm. So, this is an adult roundworm, Ascaris lumbricoides. So, it is actually present on the small intestine. Next is, so examples of disease caused by viruses. These are really important. So, the common cold, influenza, dengue virus, and dengue fever and AIDS. So, diseases like typhoid fever, cholera, tuberculosis, anthrax are caused by bacteria. So, common skin infections are caused by different kinds of fungus. So, protozoan microbes cause many familiar diseases, malaria and Kala Azar. So, we have seen intestinal worm infections and elephantiasis. So, elephantiasis is caused by Wucheria bancrofti, and so all viruses for example live inside host cell, whereas bacteria rarely do. Viruses behave like non-living things outside of the body. So, once they are inside our host cell, they behave as a living cell. So, metabolic reactions take place, and bacteria are closely related to each other than to viruses. So, important life processes in bacteria are not shared with the virus group. For example, let us take the antibiotics. So, they commonly block the biochemical pathway important for bacteria. I told you there are so many reactions taking place in our body. So, a biochemical pathway in something is something, a series of reactions take place in order to give provide a product. For example, the food you take, the glucose for example, it undergoes certain processes which is called a pathway to give you energy, alright. So, many bacteria make a cell wall to protect themselves. Antibiotic penicillin blocks the bacterial processes that build the cell wall. As a result, the growing bacteria become unable to make cell walls and die easily. So, when bacteria don't have cell walls, they are more vulnerable to be destroyed by the cells of our body. So, penicillin will have this effect on any bacteria, but viruses do not use this pathway. That is why you do not take antibiotics to you do not take antibiotics when you have a viral infection. So, when you have a common cold, taking antibiotics does not reduce the severity or duration, but if you get a bacterial infection along with the common cold, taking antibiotics will help you. So, how do diseases spread? So disease causing microbes can spread through the air. As you might know about the COVID-19, it is a typical virus which spreads through the air. So if for example, if somebody sneezes in a closed room, so there are little droplets in it, a person who is standing close by, when they take in air, they can breathe in these droplets, and microbes get a chance to start a new infection. The signs and symptoms of a disease will depend on the tissue or organ which the microbe targets. If the lungs are the target, then the symptoms will be cough and breathlessness. If the liver is target, there will be jaundice. For example, if the brain is a target, we will have headaches, vomiting, fits or unconsciousness. So, what do you do when your family falls sick? So, there are two ways to treat an infectious disease. One will be to reduce the effects of the disease, and other will be to kill the cause of the disease. For the first, we can provide treatment that will reduce the symptoms. We can take bed rest so that we can conserve energy. How do we kill microbes? One way is to use medicines that kill microbes. We already saw that microbes can be divided into certain categories. So, each of these groups will have some essential biochemical processes which is peculiar to that group and shared with the other groups. So, these processes may be pathways for the synthesis of new substances or respiration. So, that is all for today. Thank you so much for watching the video. Bye bye. Hello everyone, welcome to Amazing World of Science. Today we are going to see the continuation of Why Do We Fall Ill part 2. So, we will start from this. So, one reason that why making antiviral medicine is harder than making antibacterial medicine is that viruses have few biochemical mechanisms of their own. They enter our cells and use our machinery for their life processes. For example, HIV/AIDS virus enters our cells and they modify the cell to produce more virus particles. In that way, they control our cells and they use our machinery. So, there are a few virus specific targets to aim at. Despite that, we have a lot of antiviral drugs which keep HIV/AIDS under control. So, now we will see about the principles of prevention. So, but there are certain limitations when dealing with infectious diseases. The first one is that when someone has a disease, their body functions are damaged and they may never recover completely. The second is that the treatment will take time, which means that someone suffering from a disease is likely to be bedridden for some time, even if we can give the proper treatment. The third is that people suffering from infectious diseases may serve as a source from where the infection may spread to other people. So, for example, a person having an infectious disease, so the infection can spread from other people in the case of COVID-19. So, how do we prevent the diseases? There are two ways, one general way and one specific way to each diseases. The general way of preventing infections mostly relate to preventing exposure. So, the general way is something which we can do for all diseases, and the specific way is different for each disease. So, we should first check the pattern of the disease and we should know how are they spreading. For airborne microbes, for example, I told you that when somebody sneezes, certain droplets are released in the air. So, when another person inhales it, the microbe can affect them. For airborne microbes, we can prevent exposure by providing living conditions that are not overcrowded. For example, in an overcrowded population, for example, overcrowding means there are a lot of people in one place. So there are many chances of at least some of the people being affected by some kind of infectious disease. So since as a case of overcrowding, there is not much space, and for example in the during the COVID-19 virus, so everywhere if you go to the bank or the grocery store, you have to maintain 6 feet distance from other people. So it cannot be possible in an overcrowded place. So we should provide living conditions that are not overcrowded. For waterborne microbes, microbes which spread in water, so we can provide safe drinking water. So this can be done by treating water to kill any microbial contamination. You can also boil the water to prevent any microbes present in it. So for vector borne infections, we can provide clean environment. For example, mosquito is a vector, it carries the protozoan virus in the case of malaria. So for example, if you keep your surroundings clean, during rains you will have accumulation of dirty water in the ditches, you can clean them which prevents mosquito breeding. So for example, our immune system is normally fighting off microbes. We have actually cells that specialize in killing infecting microbes. So they are called macrophages, and you have also mainly you have lymphocytes which help in providing immunity. There are two types of lymphocytes, B lymphocytes and T lymphocytes. You will be learning about them in the higher classes. So the cells go into action each time microbes enter the body. If they are successful, we do not actually come down with any disease. So some cells such as macrophages, they engulf the microbes and prevents diseases. So if the number of infected microbes is controlled, the manifestation of the disease will be minimal. So one way of looking at severe infectious diseases is that it represents a lack of success of the immune system. So the immune system cannot function properly, and you might have heard some person in your family may have weak immune system, which means that they are more susceptible to diseases. So next there are general ways of preventing infections. So we talked about the general ways. So what are the specific ways? So let us see an example. These days, as you might know, there is no smallpox anywhere in the world. Only there are 2 smallpox samples in certain labs in the world. So but 100 years ago, smallpox epidemics were not at all uncommon. So it was rampant everywhere. So in such an epidemic, people used to be very afraid of coming near someone suffering from the disease, since they were afraid of catching it. However, there was one group of people who do not have this fear. These people will provide nursing care for the victims of smallpox. There was a group of people who had smallpox earlier and survived it with a lot of scarring. In other words, if you had smallpox once, there was no chance of suffering from it again. So having this disease once was means of preventing subsequent attacks of the same disease. So it happens when the immune system first sees an infectious microbe. So when an infectious microbe enters the body, the immune system fights it and then remembers it specifically. So next time that microbe enters the body, or the immune system already remembers it, and it will respond with great vigor. So this eliminates the infection more quickly than the first time. So this is the concept of vaccination. So we can now see that as a general principle, we can fool the immune system into developing a memory for a particular infection by putting something that mimics the microbe we want to vaccinate against into the body. So what do in vaccinations is that they insert a weakened microbe or dead microbe into a body, and the body thinks it as an active microbe and it fights against it and remembers it, and next time the microbe actually enters the body, the immune system is more sharpened and will react vigorously. So, many such vaccines are now available for preventing a whole range of infectious diseases and provide disease specific methods of prevention. So, there are vaccines against tetanus, diphtheria, whooping cough, measles, polio and many others. So, there are many public health programs of childhood. So, such a program can be useful only if all health measures are available to all children. So, sometimes in rural areas vaccines are not and health programs are not easily available for children. The government is working around to reduce this problem. So, some hepatitis viruses which cause jaundice, for example hepatitis B, you have vaccinations for that. So, hepatitis viruses are transmitted through the water. There is one vaccine for one of them, hepatitis A, in the market, but the majority of children in many parts of India are already immune to hepatitis A by the time they are 5 years old, which is because they are exposed to the virus through the water. Under these circumstances, will you take the vaccine? So, what is indicated here is that there is actually a specific vaccine for hepatitis A, but most of the kids are immunized because hepatitis A is transmitted in the water and they are already immunized through it. So, when we have successfully completed the chapter, why do we fall ill? This is a very important chapter and it has a high weightage in your final year examinations. So, take care to revise this chapter well and especially study the important points such as what are the diseases caused by viruses, bacteria. Learn that well and about the vaccination programs and the prevention. They are really important for you as well as in your higher classes. So, thank you so much for watching this video. Bye.
Welcome back everyone to another wonderful session of amazing world of science, and I am your science teacher. So, today we are going to start chapter 2, acids, bases and salts from NCERT Class 10. So, this is a very important lesson because you are going to learn all the basics about acids, bases and salts, and you should be very thorough with the concepts for this lesson. So, already you have learned in your previous classes that sour and bitter tastes of food are due to acids and bases. You know, certain food taste bitter, certain food taste sour, like lemon that tastes bitter, and many food you can detect the taste difference in them because of the presence of acids and bases. So, if someone in the family is suffering from a problem of acidity after overeating, maybe you eat a lot when you go outside to a hotel or something, and suppose you are suffering from acidity problem, about gas formation in your stomach, then how would you cure it, or what is the remedy for that? So, will you have consume lemon or lemon juice or vinegar or baking soda solution? Which one you will have? Because if you have the problem of acidity, you cannot consume lemon juice because it contains citric acid, and vinegar also contains acid, and baking soda is a base. So, to neutralize acidity you can consume base, or you can have some base, and you can also consume or have many medicines are there for gastric problems. So, antacids you can consume for the gas formation in your stomach, that will cure it, but mostly in order to nullify the effect of acids, it is neutralized by base. Now, we will learn more about the reactions of acids, bases and all that, and this is just we are talking about the introduction of the lesson. Okay, now which property did you think while choosing the remedy? And you must use your knowledge about the ability, that just what I said about the acids and bases, to nullify each other's effect. What is meant by nullify? Cancel each other's effect. And recall how we tasted sour and bitter substances without tasting them. Even without tasting them, you can test sour and bitter substances. Okay, so already you know that acids are sour in taste, and how can you identify them? They change the color of blue litmus to red. Very important point, all of you. Just remember this, acids change blue to red. Okay, don't get confused. Bases are bitter and they change the color of red litmus to blue. So acid changes blue litmus to red and bases change red litmus to blue. Just remember that. And litmus is a natural indicator, and another natural indicator is turmeric. Okay, and suppose if while you are eating, some curry fall on white cloth which you are wearing, that becomes reddish brown when you add or when you rub it with soap, which is basic in nature, while it is scrubbed, and it turns yellow again when the cloth is washed with plenty of water. Also you can use synthetic indicators. Synthetic indicators means man-made indicators like methyl, orange, phenolphthalein. These are the most commonly used indicators to test for acids and bases. You can find it in your chemistry lab. So here in this lesson, what we are going to study? You are going to study the reactions of acids and bases, how acids and bases cancel out each other's effect, and so many interesting things which we use and see in our day-to-day life. Okay, so this is very important part of the lesson. We are going to learn about the various reactions and so many things here are the basics. Only if you follow this, you will be finding your lessons for class 11 and 12 very easy. Now first we will try to understand the chemical properties of acids and bases. We will just quickly go through the chemical properties of acids and bases. Okay, so what you can do is you collect some samples from science laboratory like hydrochloric acid, HCl, sulfuric acid, H2SO4, nitric acid, HNO3, acetic acid, that is an organic acid, CH3COOH, then NaOH. All these are bases, calcium hydroxide, potassium hydroxide, magnesium hydroxide, ammonium hydroxide, and all that. You put a drop of each of the above solutions to a watch glass and test with a drop of indicators. See here various indicators, sample solution, red litmus, blue litmus, phenolphthalein, methyl orange, all these are indicators. Then these indicators tell whether a substance is acidic or basic by change in color. So there are some substances whose order also change depending upon basic or acidic media, which we call as olfactory indicators. Okay, and olfactory indicators and all that, vanilla, onion, all these with the smell itself you can say. So you can see that vanilla, onion, clove, these are all used as olfactory indicators on the you can also just try these indicators would be at your home. You can just smell and see. Okay, and out of these you all know which substances are used as olfactory indicators. That is, by the smell itself we can see the change of order. Now we will do certain activities to understand the chemical properties of acids and bases. So how do acids and bases react with metals? So for that we have a small activity like you have to take 5 ml of dilute sulfuric acid in a test tube. Okay, 5 ml of dilute HCl in a test tube, and dilute sulfuric acid, not HCl. You take some dilute sulfuric acid in a test tube and add a few pieces of zinc granules, okay, that you can get in your lab, and you can pass the gas. When you add it, gas will be formed. So you have to pass it, and then the other end of it is kept in a beaker containing soap solution, and you bring a burning candle here. Okay, and what can you see? You can repeat this experiment instead of sulfuric acid with more acids like HCl, HNO3 and all that, and if hydrogen gas is formed here, so you can hear a pop sound because of the formation of hydrogen gas, and you can see that soap also bubbles. Soap bubbles here filled with hydrogen will be formed. So reaction of zinc granules with dilute sulfuric acid and testing gas hydrogen which is formed, that is a very important part of the chemical reaction. So we will just see what happens in the above reaction. See that metal in the above reaction it will displace hydrogen from the acid. So, zinc is the metal, it will displace hydrogen from sulfuric acid. This is seen as hydrogen gas. So, the metal combines with acid, it forms a compound called salt, and at the same time hydrogen gas will be evolved. You can summarize the reactions like acid plus metal will give you salt plus hydrogen gas. So, the reaction which take place, you have got another activity here. Take a few pieces of zinc metal in a test tube and add sodium hydroxide solution and warm it, and what will happen, repeat the rest of the steps in like in the previous activity and record your observations. You can see that when a base react with metal, see sodium zincate, what is it, Na2Zn O2 plus hydrogen gas. Again you can see that hydrogen gas is formed in the reaction, but all such reactions hydrogen it is not possible for the with all the metals, such reactions or formation of hydrogen cannot happen. In our next class we will learn about how do metal carbonates and metal hydrogen carbonates react with acid. Meanwhile, you read this portion thoroughly and do like, share and subscribe to our channel Amazing World of Science, and we will be uploading NCERT line by line, mainly from class 9 and class 10, and in between we will be also doing for class 8, and watch these classes carefully and revise the portions well, and do share the channel with your friends. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.